Well, hey everybody, John Ritlin here, and this is Hashtag Ask for Honesty, episode 19. Told you I would be back, and I got plenty more questions to answer here. These will all probably be answered here instead of pushing any off to episode 20. But thank you guys for the great questions for all the episodes up to now. And if none of your questions were answered in episode 18, and you sent them like, Wednesday or today, Thursday morning, then they're being answered right here. So if you want to send a question, please leave a comment below this video. Include 3 to 4 questions max, unless I say otherwise. Same with Twitter DM. You can send in as many questions, and I will do what I can to answer them as detailed as possible. Or check the pinned tweets that I put up Tuesday morning and Thursday morning, and use the hashtag Ask for Honesty. Wrestling, music, or movie related questions. Once again, politics, let's leave those just to Twitter, since I'm pretty outspoken and I want to try to make this more about entertainment, even though I do some rants. But anyway, let's get on with it. And we're going to start off episode 19 with 2 questions from Belena WWE. First question: who would you want to see win the Mae Young Classic 3 if they do another women's tournament this fall? Firstly, I kind of hope they don't do another women's tournament, only because they're already having difficulty utilizing enough of the women as it is. Now, I'm not saying I don't want women to be featured more in WWE. Quite the contrary. There are plenty of women I want to see get a shot. But right now, I would want to see some more women go to AEW and, places like that to get more of a chance, because right now, WWE only seems to want to focus on, a few particular women, even though they have a fucking loaded roster. Maybe they should scrap the, promote the tag titles, or scrap them and include a women's mid-card title, and then have Billy and Peyton win that. And use the Freebird rule. Why the fuck not? But back to the Mae Young Classic 3. If they do it, one, I think they could have some standout performance. I like to see Veda Scott. Even if she wouldn't be signed, I like to see Veda Scott there. Nicole Matthews, so I think visa issues might prevent that. I'm going to throw out some women that I've seen at indie shows. I would like to see Thunder Rosa included in on that. Now, Priscilla Kelly, I don't think Priscilla Kelly's going to be included in on it, even though she was included on the Mae Young Classic 2. Priscilla Kelly, by the way, super awesome to meet. If you ever get a chance to meet her, please do so. But I wouldn't mind seeing Priscilla Kelly back. But Thunder Rosa, yeah, like I said, Veda Scott, Tennille Dashwood, bring back Emma, have it be a bit of a redemption story, like with with Caitlyn. Have Caitlyn come in there. As far as other women, I can't really think of too many that they could otherwise include. If Kelly Klein doesn't work out in Ring of Honor, include her. Kelly Klein could be goddamn good. Because otherwise, there's so many that are going to be signed to AEW and other companies and everything. I mean, bring back Meiko Satomura if you want to feature somebody that's super talented, because Meiko Satomura is damn good. Mercedes Martinez, and plenty of others. Those would be some that I would like to see. And then you can include some that aren't used all that much in NXT UK. Charlie Morgan, Killer Kelly, who I absolutely love, and others. I think you could build a good field. I don't know if they're going to be able to do 32, though, because they already have so many women signed, and there are so many other women signed to so many exclusive contracts with other companies, that I don't know if that's going to necessarily work out. But I'll throw out a couple others. I'll throw out the only Sloan. She was pretty damn cool. I got to see her at a Defy Northwest Wrestling show. And Hotshot. She's I believe her and DJZ, who's under a totally different name in NXT, are engaged. But Hotshot I've been very impressed with in the few matches. She only had a few matches, and she's goddamn impressive. Of course, Lance Storm trained her, and Lance Storm doesn't train slouches at all. So clearly she learned from one of the best. I like to see her get a shot. I don't know necessarily a hot shot, if you will. I don't know how well she would perform on that big stage, but I think she could do damn well, because she already is able to hit a beautiful suicide dive into a tornado DDT in front of like 200 people in a at the wrestling shows I go to, like Without a Cause. So I'd like to see her get a shot. Others, I can't really think of any right now, but those names would be ones that I would throw out there. And if they could have some breakout performances, absolutely great. They want to bring Rhea Ripley in there and have her be part of it. Have a returning Tegan Nox be part of it. And maybe Tegan could actually win it. I was very, very unfortunate about Tegan Nox's injury. And hopefully, if they do it, they can do it right. Have some good promotion about it. And maybe actually put the tournament going on sometime like before, it's been taped for a couple months in advance, or at least like a month in advance. Just have the tournament actually happen. Not happen as it's happening, not happening live, because they obviously tape it, in a chunk. But they could also try that format where maybe they tape, like, a few episodes and then they just run them over the few weeks. And then they just run it a little better. Maybe run 2 episodes a week and maybe not make it 1 a week. And that way you could actually promote the tournament pretty well. But anyway, that's another story for another day. Those are the women I would like to see. Leave your thoughts in the comments about women you would like to see included in on this. And somebody I have a feeling might say Velvet Sky and Angelina Love. Please, dear God, no. And then question number 2, and this is news that just got broken today. WWE, is bringing back Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff in prominent roles. Well, I mean, Heyman's already there, but they're bringing back Eric Bischoff. Her question, thoughts on WWE naming Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff as the executive creative directors. Heyman for Raw, Bischoff for SmackDown, because soon they're going to be on different networks. Fox is going to get SmackDown, and USA Network's going to keep Raw. She says, does this really mean anything since Vince has the final say? Anyways, and give me a second. I was just Googling and looking up the word desperation, because that's what this fucking is. It's fucking desperation. Now, let me say this. Heyman creatively has a pretty good mind. Bischoff creatively has a pretty good mind. It's not going to fucking work because Vince has the final say. That's the problem. Vince having the final say is not going to matter. Him listening to other people is not the worst goddamn thing in the world, and I'm sure that Bischoff at this point in his life would be more willing to do what Vince is telling him to do, but I'm sure Bischoff has some ideas on how to do some stuff. Now, I would say bring, and I know he's controversial, but maybe get some input from Cornette, but I know Cornette's kind of, I admit, even as a fan, he's kind of toxic right now, so maybe you don't want to do that, but if they're going to go for old people, why not just go for him? I mean, at least he's got some ideas. But if they're going with Bischoff and Heyman, let's just go with that. Heyman and Bischoff are not going to be the answer. They're not going to be the fucking answer at all. Yeah, that's not a very good idea. I don't think it's going to matter ultimately. I think it's just going to, it's going to be putting a Band-Aid on a fucking axe wound, and axe wound to the neck, which means it's not going to do anything. The blood is flowing out of the corpse or flowing out of the body of WWE at an alarming rate. And this is not going to necessarily work. Now, if they get enough control over it and can make the show seem different and make the brand split matter, sure. But Vince still has a final fucking say over it. So unless this is a way for Vince to ultimately leave and focus on the XFL and Triple H, Stephanie, and others take over. Hopefully more Triple H, even though I don't think he's a savior of the company. I honestly think this is just going to be a Band-Aid on axe wound. I don't ultimately think it's going to work. It's going to be just Vince, putting more yes men here that may have good ideas, but Vince is ultimately going to be the one to say, no, it's such good shit. And that's really what it's ultimately going to be. So I don't really think it's going to matter that much. I think it's just window dressing, smoke and mirrors, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I don't think it's going to work out as well as they want. Now, I hope it does, because I think they could have some good ideas. But Vince really doesn't want to listen to any good ideas anymore. And folks, I'm going to answer some more questions right after this short break. All right, folks, sorry for that. Just a quick short break, but thank you very much to Valena for those questions. And now I'm going to move on to the rest of the questions I got sent yesterday and today in comments and also on Facebook and stuff like that. So I've got plenty of stuff. So I'm going to be as detailed, but run through these as much as possible because I got a page front to back of questions. Anyway, Bobby from Facebook. Who is your dream opponent for Bret Hart? If you could pick anybody during his time in the ring that he did not take on, who would it be? And yeah, you could come up with dream opponents. Like, I mean, he said not people like AJ Styles and Seth Rollins and stuff like that, which it would have been cool to see a young AJ Styles take on Bret Hart had he not been injured. But taking that to the side, I would have always liked to have seen a program with him and Sting that wasn't shit. I would like to have seen Bret versus Warrior. There was a rumor that was going to happen at Royal Rumble 93. But I got one. Bret versus Barry Windham. Hook that match into my veins. I would have loved to have fucking seen that. Bret Hart versus Barry Windham. Bret Hart versus a prime Mike Rotunda. I would have liked to have seen that. Those would have been some damn good matches. Bret versus Kane. I mean, yeah, Kane at that point was a monster. It might have just eaten him alive. But had Bret come back in, like, say, 2000 after his contract was up, or like 2001, had that worked out, and yeah, he would have been older, he could have faced off against Kane when Kane was still a monster, but maybe not where he couldn't sell anything and was just like, the invulnerable monster. He had suffered some losses, but was still pretty dominant. I would like to have seen that, or him versus Kurt Angle. But if we're just going to focus on, say, everything worked out the way it did, and, Bret unfortunately suffered the concussions and the stroke and that kind of stuff, Barry Windham or Mike Rotunda, or even Kamala. I would like to have seen Kamala. I would have liked to have seen Bret also versus Kerry Von Erich. Or Kevin Von Erich. Because I think those matches would have been pretty goddamn good. And Bret Hart versus Gino Hernandez. I mean, yeah, Gino was never in WWE, but tell me that wouldn't have been good. But Bret versus Windham, Bret versus Mike Rotunda. And his second question, is Balor going to join the club? Probably. I mean, I don't fucking know. I don't think they fucking know anymore either. I don't know if anybody knows what the fuck's going on anymore. Balor seems, they're going with a Balor-Nakamura feud into Extreme Rules, which will probably be a good match, but at this point, Nakamura, who, maybe he wanted time off, whatever the fuck he wanted, he hasn't been on TV for so goddamn long, I forgot he existed. Yeah, he'll probably join the club, and then Gallows and Anderson are going to leave. Because I'm sorry, Gallows and Anderson, this is their last hurrah. They're going to go back to Japan or something. I can't see why they would sign new deals when they haven't been featured at all. So I know it sounds like I'm being a little cryptic about it, but that's true. I just can't fucking see what they're going to do with, I just can't see what they're going to fucking do with Balor. If it leads to Balor and AJ Styles feuding over the IC title, great. But then, wildcard rule, they, are on separate brands. That is one thing, by the way, going back to Velena's questions, I hope with Heyman and Bischoff, them, having creative control, whatever, creative directors, whatever the fuck it is, even Vince has the final say, that they make the shows mean something different. Get rid of the wildcard rule. For the love of God, get rid of the wildcard rule. It's not good shit. It's not good shit at all. It's dragging down a lot of the shows and marginalizing so many of the women, the tag divisions. The 24/7 title was created essentially to just give people something to do, and it's all comedic and bullshit. But whatever, I digress. Back to that, Balor will probably join the club at some point. Or, I mean, I don't know if AJ's going to turn full on heel or not, because we've had AJ Styles as, a babyface for a couple years. I don't necessarily know if we need him back as a heel. But whatever, he's great as face or heel. I never thought he'd work as a heel back even in his TNA days, and boy, was I proven wrong. That was back in 2003. Anyway, AJA T800. A couple questions here. Well, multi-layered questions, but what's your favorite belt design of the following championships? The WWE Championship, NWA WCW US Championship, well, NWA WCW WWE US Championship, and Intercontinental Championship. Okay, WWE Wing Belt. The wing belt is exactly the one that I love. That is iconic. One of my favorites. I always thought the way the plates kind of fell off the leather that they were going to stab somebody when they tried to put the belt on. I don't know why I thought about that, but the wing belt would be my absolute favorite of that. As far as the NWA one, anything in the Crockett era. Anything in the Crockett era, the very early time of Turner owning the company, I like the U.S. title design there. I don't mind the U.S. title design now. But I will say the Crockett or early Ted Turner owning days would be the ones that I particularly enjoyed. IC title, back when Bret Hart owned it. Bret Hart, Mr. Perfect, Kerry Von Erich, whatever, when Roddy Piper had it. For a number of years, I like that design of the IC title. I'm not saying that the other designs are bad. I'm not even saying, the design now is necessarily bad. I did like when Cody Rhodes brought back the classic white strap and the classic look. I like that. But those would be the ones that I would particularly pick for that. So his second question, what are your favorite finishing maneuvers ever in the following categories? Grapple, and he gives examples like suplex, DDT, powerbomb, pile driver. And I'm going to go with that one first. Suplex, I would always say, obviously, it was Harley Race used to finish people with a suplex, and he would finish them with a pretty damn good suplex. Suplex, I'll say, and I know it's not quite the same, but vertical drop brainbuster, I'll just throw that out. Tomohiro Ishii's vertical drop brainbuster, DDT, Arn Anderson, Jake Roberts, Raven. Those would be them. Michael Hayes actually had a pretty good DDT, but he would be ranked fourth. Jake Roberts and then Raven, Arn Anderson. I'll rank Ravens above Arn Anderson, even though Arn Anderson had a nice, snap DDT. I always thought Raven had a bit more oomph to it. But Arn Anderson overall, better in the ring. But I'll say for DDT's Raven for sure. His was right below Jake Roberts. Powerbomb, Jackknife, obviously for, Kevin Nash or Sid Vicious. The last rites or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Pile driver, Jerry Lawler, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Jerry Lawler, I would say for him there, or the Tombstone pile driver. Yeah, I'd say Jerry Lawler for sure. Lex Luger actually used the pile driver for a while. I'm not fond of giving credit to Lex Luger, but he used pile driver when Harley Race became his manager for a bit, and it actually worked pretty well because it was him trying to hurt people and trying to cripple them, which is ironic given what happened to Lex Luger later in his life. And then another part, strikes, so kicks, so kicks, punch, knees, elbow, clothesline, lariat. Stan Hansen's lariat, the Russian sickle I always liked. Clothesline from Hell actually was pretty good. But the Stan Hansen lariat and the Russian sickle from Nikita Koloff. Elbow, I like Randy Savage's elbow drop. I mean, that was pretty cool. Kicks, Shawn Michaels' super kick's pretty iconic, but it's still not all that great. I really can't think of too many others besides those right there. The knees, oh God, let's see. No, can't really think of anything with the knees either. I mean, I'm drawing a blank on some of these things, but sorry. And then submission, sharpshooter, figure four. I did like the ankle lock from Ken Shamrock. I always thought that was pretty good. And then diving attack or splash. 5-star frog splash is pretty impressive. Art bars, frog splash, which Eddie Guerrero, took as in honor of Art Bar and did it pretty goddamn well. Other than that, I can't really think of too many. Because Splash, I mean, yeah, you go 630, you go all that fancy stuff. But I'll go more old school. I'll go Art Bar, Eddie Guerrero, RVD, that kind of stuff. And Rich James from YouTube asked a few questions. Friday the 13th or Halloween series, and why? Halloween had the better movies overall. Friday the 13th was more consistent with how bullshit and stupid it was. And I mean that with respect, because I actually like both franchises. But as far as where one was to where one went, Halloween fell off a steeper cliff than Friday the 13th. Because Friday the 13th's movies were never really all that well designed or all that well done. Outside of some creative kills and stuff like that. The storylines were always fucking bullshit anyway. But Friday the 13th, I liked the first one. And then by the time I got to the fourth one, I think the fourth one was when it was just some guy and not Jason as the killer, which was a little bit weird. It was fourth or fifth. I think it was fourth. It was a fourth. But that was a little bit weird. And then, of course, you had Jason X, you had that kind of stuff. And you had the reboot of, Friday the 13th, which people didn't like. Freddy versus Jason, that kind of stuff. So, the Friday the 13th movies were more fun. Halloween had the better movies, as far as Halloween, the 1978 one. And then Halloween 2, which we just fucking ignored. And then we had Halloween, H2O, which is pretty fun. The other sequel to Halloween, Halloween 2018. A couple of the other ones weren't really all that good after that. I mean, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch gets a bad rap because it wasn't a Michael Myers movie. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. That song and that commercial does stick in your head. But they fell off a steeper cliff, easy for me to say, as far as like where they were to where they ended up before they rebooted it all. Even though I liked Halloween H2O, didn't like Resurrection. Resurrection was shit. But better movies than Halloween, better overall, like, fun in the Friday the 13th movies. So I hope that answered your question there. And then we get, oh boy, the sun's coming out. We have a bit of a storm going on. Anyway, so his second question, kind of based off the whole horror thing here. I think a Halloween, Friday the 13th crossover would be cool. If done right, do you agree or disagree, and why? I mean, the main Freddy vs. Jason works, so why the fuck not? It would be two killers. Even though Jason had the supernatural stuff and the, being all in space, which was kind of ridiculous. Okay, it was dumb. It did have creative kill with the woman's face being frozen and smashed on the sink. Woman or guy, I don't remember who. Lexa Doig, I think was her name, or Dogue. She was really, really pretty in it, so that was pretty nice. But everything else, they made Friday the 13th first. They made Freddy vs. Jason work, so why not? I mean, I'd be fine with it. If you just focus on the fact that Jason's a killer, Michael's a killer, and they both can, just rise from the dead and that kind of stuff and have some fun, sure. I mean, both, Halloween's kind of gotten a bit of a resurrection. Not Halloween resurrection, so to speak. So why the fuck not? I mean, I think it could work. I don't know if it would, but why not? And then, third question. Would you be interested in a Mortal Kombat game starring all horror movie characters such as Chucky, Michael Myers, etc.? I think they had Jason in one of them. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, I'd be all for it. They would have to go really, really deep on some of these to make it a deep enough roster and get like Pinhead and other stuff like that and everything, and dive into maybe some of the European horror movies and whatever. But yeah, I actually would be totally for that. I'm not the biggest Mortal Kombat series fan, but yeah, I mean, why not? They've managed to create games with less content and sell a whole bunch of units. So unit. So why the fuck not? And fourth question: where was Russo worst booker, WCW or TNA, and why? TNA. WCW could not be saved even if Russo had great booking. WCW could not be saved at that point. The people taking over Turner did not want it, no matter how much money it made or lost. They were done with it. Russo did have shit booking in WCW. He was also not there nearly as long. TNA, despite all evidence to the contrary, kept bringing the stupid motherfucker back, and it didn't work. Every single time, the whole, last rites thing, with Sting and Abyss, the Dr. Stevie stuff with Abyss and Stevie Richards. Stevie Richards, by the way, underappreciated performer, really should have been given more of a chance in bigger companies. I mean, Right to Censor and stuff like that was pretty good, but he deserved more to be taken more seriously. I actually like the Right to Censor stuff, as annoying as it was, and as much of that music is still in my head, haunting me. It will haunt me till my dying day. But all the booking, all the bullshit that he came up with, his run in TNA was worse, because it hampered a lot of what that company could have done to grow. I'm not saying everything Russo did was bad, but his ideas filtered could work. Him being given total control didn't work. It was a much steeper decline in WCW, but at that point WCW was spiraling out of control anyway. So even his best booking wouldn't have saved it. So that's what I have to say about that. And his fifth question, actually, a couple of these are kind of like just mashed into one anyway. So in 2 years' time, who do you see winning the ratings war? WWE or AEW? WWE. Because for right now, WWE is a more established brand. AEW is an upstart. AEW could win some of, the nights. But it really depends. If they were going head-to-head, who the fuck knows? They may be going head-to-head by next year. Who the fuck? I have no fucking idea. AEW's got to get a foothold on TNT, get a growing fan base, and get some good ratings first before we can even talk about winning a ratings war. They're also not going head-to-head on the same night. I hope AEW does well. I think it will do well. But even though I'm excited and want the Monday Night Wars to come back, they're not going to come back. It's not going to be the same. Everything will not be as it was, but it is an exciting time to see what AEW is going to be able to do, and hopefully they are going to draw a big enough fan base to really make WWE step their game up. I hate to say it right now, but as long as Vince is in charge, this is AEW's best shot, because Vince is not smart enough, like he was in the Monday Night Wars or even the Ruthless Aggression era, to really make things work anymore. He's a lot older. He is the old-time promoter that he fought against for so many years. So AEW for right now will draw big ratings, I hope, but since they're not going head-to-head, there's no real way of telling who's going to win the ratings war. But hopefully it brings out the best in both companies, and that the rosters in the world, the wrestling world overall, and the fans benefit the most. I would say get back to me in about 6 months, especially 6 months into the TV deal, so right around, let's see, October, so right after WrestleMania. Right around, say, a couple weeks after WrestleMania. Let's get back to me on that, and let's see what happens. And you guys can ask me anything about WWE and AEW. I have no problem answering. But outside of what I said, I have no real other way to answer other than that. So, final 6 questions. I tried to include as many questions as I could on the last episode. But these are from BioBurrow. Thank you for sending all the questions in. If I have to rush through a couple of these due to time constraints, I apologize. But thank you, and thank you to everybody that sent me questions for today. I really do appreciate it, and it means a whole lot. But now let's get into the questions. The final amount. Looking back at the Terminator movies, Terminator movie series, how would you rate them from best to worst? My favorite is the first, found it to be more dark, serious, and bloody gory. Terminator and Terminator 2 are kind of like neck and neck for me. I'll say Terminator 2 just barely. But Terminator 1, I agree with you, is far grittier. Taking the Terminator series out of it, because it was shit. Terminator 3 is below those and kind of way below. And then the other one's Salvation, and I want to say Genesis. And they got another Terminator movie coming out. Fucking Christ, just stop. Stop with the Terminator movies. So that's how I'll say it. I mean, that's kind of a short answer, but Terminator 2, neck and neck. I still always appreciate Terminator 2 just a little more, but for the budget and for the, you know, time constraints and for the constraints they had with getting Terminator 1 off the ground, they did really goddamn well, and the special effects were absolutely amazing. Practical and otherwise were absolutely amazing. And then Terminator 1 was great, you know, as far as, you know, sparking a lot of interest in, like, you know, computer generated effects and all the stuff they did. And then all of a sudden James Cameron went absolutely nuts in Avatar, and I hate Avatar. I hate it with a fucking passion. Fuck Avatar. Fuck anybody that had anything to do with making Avatar, and fuck anybody that thinks that the Avatar sequels are a good idea. I'm kidding on that. I'm sorry. That was too far. If you guys think that Avatar was a good movie, okay, but Avatar was absolutely rotten. It was Ferngully Dances with Wolves and a whole bunch of bullshit. It was a whole bunch of rip-off bullshit. But Terminator 1 and 2. So sorry to go off on that little tangent right there. And by the way, BioBurrow, if you like the Avatar movies, sorry, I'm not knocking you. I just hate them. But yeah, I'll say Terminator 2 and 1 neck and neck. And then second question. What is your opinion of the Silent Hill 2 game story? I loved it. Best story ever. I will say that I do agree with you. It was a great story about, you know, James Sutherland not really feeling like he had much to live for. You know, looking for his wife, all that stuff and everything. Said, would you be up for seeing it developed into a movie? Who would you pick to play James Sutherland, Maria, you know, Maria, Eddie Ernest? I'm sorry if I wrote some of those names down wrong. It's been a while since I played Silent Hill 2, Electric Boogaloo. Don't make it live action. Make it animated. Make it like computer generated, this kind of stuff, or whatever. Do that. Because I think it could work better as a computer generated movie than it could as a live action. I don't think live action, they could translate enough with it. I really don't know who you could pick to voice James Sutherland. Let's see. Zac Efron? If you're doing it computer generated, Zac Efron. I think Zac Efron would actually be a good choice. Maria, Claire Danes? I mean, why not? I think Claire Danes could work pretty well. And Eddie, can't really think anybody that you could have to voice Eddie. Please leave in the comments what you think. Let's figure out who would voice the dog at the end. Sorry, spoiler, but, you know, the whole dog controlling the whole thing was kind of ridiculous. So as for voice acting, I'm not really sure. But I would make it computer generated. I would like to see it happen. I think it could work. But the problem is that story is kind of deep, and I don't know if they could tell it compellingly enough in a, you know, like 90-minute or 2-hour movie. I'd like to see it happen, but I just don't know how good it would be. Number 3, looking at the history of New Japan, who would you say was a better in-ring face for the company? Inoki in the 80s, Muta in the 90s, Fujita in the MMA era, Tanahashi or Okada now? Good question. Fujita I'm ranking below. Now, it's nothing against Fujita, who actually is really, really good in the ring. I encourage you guys to go check out Google Fujita New Japan, Fu, you know, that's F-U, excuse me, Fujita, and Google that and find some of his matches. He's actually really good. But that was a dark period for New Japan. That was actually what led to them having to rebrand and reboot and everything and take over and take it in a different direction from Inoki. But Vegeta, I'm going to have to rank Muta right or like above Vegeta, even though I love Muta and he drew some big crowds and was a big sensation there and still is, even at his advanced age and with the knee replacements he's had. Inoki will be right up there, right above Muta, because Inoki did a whole lot of good shit. Yeah, he got a little bit in the weeds as far as his booking and stuff like that and how he books and stuff, but it worked pretty well. And, you know, Inoki drew a lot of big crowds and everything, wrestled all over the goddamn world. I'll rank Tanahashi and Okada right up there. Tanahashi is unfortunate that he gets forgotten about just how good of a face he was for New Japan. And still is, don't get me wrong. He is still a good face for Japan. But he beat his body up and fought through so many goddamn injuries too. He is held together with duct tape and string and paper clips and bits of tissue paper. It's not really, you know, he doesn't really have that much left. Tanahashi's a great face for the company. Okada's a great face for the company now. So that's how I would rank it. So Okada, Tanahashi, Inoki, Muta, Vegeta. You know, going from top on down. And then for the WWE, because he's asking about faces of the company there, San Martino, Hulk Hogan, Bret, Stone Cold, Triple H, Cena, Reigns. This is in their respective eras. So I'm going to have to rank Reigns the last. I'm sorry. There's nothing against Reigns, but I got to rank Reigns as last. I will say, no, you know what? Actually, Triple H. I'm ranking Triple H last. Because Triple H, I just feel he could always work with the top guy, but he was never the top guy. And then Reigns above him. So Triple H at the bottom, Reigns. Then Cena. And Cena did a lot of good for the company, don't get me wrong, as much as I knock Cena. Then Bret. Hate to put Bret in the middle. I hate to put Bret in the middle. He did a phenomenal job with it, but nobody was going to draw for that company at that point. He drew some good crowds, especially in Europe. But I'll put Bret there. I'll put Hogan above Bret, much as I hate to do that, as far as face of the company, because of the length and the longevity. Even though Bret was a great wrestler, and my favorite wrestler of all time, I'm putting Hogan above Bret as far as, face of the company and everything, because Hogan was everywhere. I'm going to put I'll put San Martino above Hogan, only because, yes, Hogan brought the mainstream and all that stuff and everything. So actually, you can flip San Martino and Hogan, because San Martino, totally different era, and he was super, super over in New York, and they ran a lot less shows, but he was over, and he did wrestle everywhere, including Toronto and a whole bunch of places. So I'll put San Martino there, I'll put Hogan there, and then I'll put Austin number one. Because Austin led to such a goddamn hot period that you can't help it. You can't ignore what Austin did business-wise. Could you ignore what Austin did as far as, beating women? Sure, if you want to, but that's a pretty piece of shit thing to do. But as far as wrestling, that guy did a whole lot. He did. So that's how I would rank them. And then his fifth question, this will be an easy one. If you decided to be a wrestler, I wouldn't, but I'm going to finish this. What would your ring name, gear, power? Would you be a powerhouse, high flyer, technical, hardcore? What would your finisher be? Would you sign with AEW, WWE, New Japan, or somebody else? I would be a manager. I would be the weakest damn manager once babyfaces got in my face. I would not be a wrestler. I am not built for it. Even if I could be a wrestler, I would not do it. I'm not built for it. I would be a manager. And I would talk a big game and everything, talk all this stuff and say, my guy's going to beat your guys and everything. And get in the face. It's kind of like, the pussyfoot, like, I'd say like Jim Cornette, but without the racket and without, maybe too much outspokenness, but I would slap people in this and that kind of stuff. Or be like Heyman, when he was Paulie Dangerously. Do that kind of stuff and get in the faces of every babyface. But when the babyfaces, got into me, I would just cower and this kind of stuff. And it would be old school stuff, but that's what I would do. So as far as finisher, if I ever wrestled, Death Valley Driver. Fuck, I don't know. No, not Death Valley Driver. Blue Thunderbomb. I do something like that. But I would say, as far as, I would not be a wrestler. I'd be a manager, and that's the kind of manager I would be. I hope I answered your question. I would call myself Johnny Ritz. Also, it would just be, a rich playboy, a guy that always thought he was hot shits and everything. Hot shit also. And it would be like a play on, like, stuff from the 80s and everything. But it would be old school, but it would also be new school, because I can appreciate old and new school wrestling. So it would just be something like that. But that's what I would call myself. And then his last question, and thanks once again, guys. Really, you guys provide some great material here. As for zombie movies, do you prefer the idea of a virus or old school voodoo magic turning people into zombies? I may have worded that a bit differently. I wrote it down a bit quick, so I'm sorry. But like all of The Walking Dead, I assume, is what you were saying. I prefer a virus because voodoo magic, I get. It does have a purpose that happens in some zombie movies. I will be honest, I'm zombie movied out. I don't really like them as much, but as far as your question, I prefer a virus, because then I think that there's more ways you can play around with that. If you do voodoo magic, yeah, it's a bit old school, and it's stuff like from back in the 40s, 50s, and all that stuff, and maybe even 60s when they would do that, and then you go to Hammer horror stuff in the 50s, 60s, and maybe even the 70s when they were doing that, and maybe even like the Italian horror movies and stuff like that. But I would say the virus, because the virus you can play around with more. It's a way where like anybody can get it. And with voodoo magic, it's like, yes, you can be cursed, but with a virus, everybody can get it, and you're pretty much fucked. So that's basically it right there. So yeah, I hope I answered all your guys' questions as well as I possibly could. So thank you guys very much for that. If you guys have more questions, make sure to comment on episodes 18, 19. And if I get enough, I'll even do one for, after Fighter Fest. Maybe right after Fighter Fest, we'll see. But anyway, agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I am John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.